Morning, everybody. Gonna switch up the way I do the watch list just for this week because some people have asked me on my process. So we'll briefly go over it and then I'll continue back with the pre recorded videos as the other ones have been. Cool. All right, so let me share my screen real quick. It's gonna do screen two. It's gonna be a million of moments. All right, let's get that out the way. All right, there we go. For those who are in here, let me know if you can see me and if you can hear me. Also, for those who are wanting to just get to the actual levels and whatnot, you can probably skip like 2 or 3 minutes ahead. I'm just gonna briefly go over how I do this. So for those who pretty much see my watch list that I put out every week, mainly just gonna go over the process for like swing trading ideas and how I find those tickers. So I use the Thinkorswim scanner. So there's just some items here. If it wants to unfreeze, I guess I got to bring back TOS. I guess my Thinkorswim is just frozen. One moment. Technical difficulties. Fun times. Got to re-log in. Hey, morning, Sean. Waiting for my Thinkorswim to pop up because it froze for whatever reason. Anything you looking at this week? Classic Thinkorswim installing updates. I'll bring it up in a few. There we go. Cool. Yeah, we can definitely look at the indices as well. You're looking at upper gaps to fill or bottom gaps to fill? Gotcha. All right, we are back in business. Only took 50 years to bring back Thinkorswim. I know the futures market is going to be open tomorrow. I'm not really going to bother trading. Just going to come back Tuesday and just use tomorrow as a day off. I don't necessarily like trading on those like holiday days. You can still catch some good moves, but generally not my cup of tea. I was looking at NQ just now. Why is everything delayed? Oops. I might just need to share one window. Sharing my full screen is lagging everything up. Or actually, let me stop streaming here. Might be a little better now. There we go. NQ has a gigantic W on the 4-hour. Not the cleanest that I would look to take, but we'll see what happens there. All right, Thinkorswim is back on. Or did it crash again? All right, I guess we're gonna do the version where I'm just sharing one thing because my TOS just crashed again. Probably gonna have to edit this because we're 7 minutes in and still nothing. Or I'll just make little labels. Welcome to those who are coming in. Waiting for my Thinkorswim to load up. In the meantime, I'll just do some random ones that I would usually check myself. Oh, rest in peace, Netflix. Whoever got in that short from 2 weeks ago, almost hitting that last target by a few more points. I got out at the second target, well, once it pulled back into my entry. But somebody was talking to me about Amazon. Momo Shooter on Microsoft Weekly. I might add this to the list. Just got to be mindful because we might get bought up in that area. Excuse me. All right, let's try this once more. AMD on the 1-hour. Let's check it out. Extended hours or regular hours for the 1 hour on AMD? You do have some nice consolidation. A lot of things have 3 1s on the 4 hour from last week, from what I was looking at, or at least from Friday anyway. What's the daily looking like? Fail 2 down. Inside bar on the week. Got that gap to fill. How much more? Whoops. About $30 from where we're at now. All right. Should be in business now. There we go. Let me just screenshot this and just paste it in my trading view. So these are pretty much the scans that I use when I'm looking for the strat setups for swings. I don't really use it for day trading because it's too much noise, at least for me, trying to find different things. But 13. So I usually start at the top, or usually in the weekly. Every now and then I'll look at monthly, but I personally don't really care too much for anything above the weekly, unless it's a really good setup. But usually just for like regular stock, I'll swing on the monthly, not necessarily like options and stuff. All right, let's see. I don't think anything would have an inside week, but oh, never mind. Actually, just looking at one right now. Thought this was the double inside. So AMD, as we're looking at now, has the inside week. If anybody trades CrowdStrike, I don't. That's also there. Hold on, let me add these before I forget. If anybody trades IoniQ, has an inside week as well. I definitely don't. Damn, they're $34. Nice. Baba is inside month. Yeah, just chopping around. Completed that H on the daily. Zoom has a double inside day. I haven't traded that in a while. Oh man, I haven't looked at Zoom in years. I haven't used that color scheme in a long time. Double inside day. I'm not really a fan of the wicks from last week and the week prior. We've all been there. I forgot what stock that happened to me on. I was talking to my barber the other day, and that happened to him with not Amazon, Tesla. I think the last time Tesla was near like $100. He got stopped out of his calls, and that thing ripped. That's when it went from like 100 to like 200-300 in like a month, or something like that. I think it was like within a month's time. Happened to me on Tesla as well before. I think I had like 2 week out calls, and I got stopped out. Either I got stopped out or I took profit quick. And I think I got the contracts for like $500 or $600, and then either stopped out or took them for like 700-800 around there. Then the next week, crazy pump, and then they were up like 2,000-3,000 a piece. That one I was salty about, but it's Tesla. Nothing really catching my attention from today's scans. Got about 2 more that I'll check out, and then we'll just look at some other stuff. ZOM has a potential TTO on the daily time frame if we break to the upside. Just got to be mindful of what oil's doing. Hold on, let me add ZOM. close this because there's nothing else there. Kind of just stuck in this range on the daily. Weekly, a failed two-up shooter and a tiny volume imbalance around 61 and another around 57. Oh, whoops. All right, let's see. Whoops, not AMD. I got to go back to Zon. What are the contracts looking like? So 151 to 158, at least a month out. And it can be 2 weeks out. Let's do the 155s aren't too bad for March 6th. The spread is only like $6. Or whoops, wrong column. The spread is actually about $30. For 155, they're about 17. Not too bad. The 157.50 only have an $8 spread. So this can be decent for March 6th. Let's see something. Its ATR is $3.50. So in about a day and a half, assuming we just go straight up, it can complete that TTO on the daily. But again, got to be mindful with what oil's doing, oil futures or crude oil. Definitely looking bearish on the weekly, so we may continue down. 157.50s can be decent for calls at least 3 weeks out. Yeah, for the long side, that'll be first target. And then, of course, the TTO completing, which will be the second target. Granted, if it's going to be a valid TTO, it's going to break that high, but we don't know if it's going to happen in a week, in 2 weeks, whatever. So I'll probably take profit when it, or trim some when it's 155 and change. For the put side, this wick down here or this area here is fine, but Strat wise, we have this daily low and body that could be target one, but to me that's too close to entry. So probably having this down here as the first target, and then we can see if we aim for these other lows over here as a second target. For anybody coming in, any tickers you want to go over, let me know. We'll talk about it. Yes, that's pretty much ZOM. Let's go back to AMD. Let's see. Could be a potential W on the daily time frame for AMD. Fill that gap to the upside, or attempt to fill that gap up to the upside. And it hasn't hit the 61 for me to take that to the upside. Let's go back to the weekly. That range is pretty wide. Let's see, it moves about $13 a day, give or take. It's not bad. Probably uses body. Let's actually bring some fibs up. I don't necessarily like going long off of reverse hammers or shooters. So if we were to break to the upside, I'll be looking to take some profit off at that 50 fib, at the blue line that I have there at 228.84. We can use that body strat-wise for the second target at 235.77. And then the other fib levels as we hit that week, the weekly wicks high. There we go. Getting a tongue twister there. Definitely gonna need time on this because this is a weekly time frame. Probably go anywhere between 45 days and higher. 30 days is fine, but just be mindful if we get another choppy week or not much happens. I gotta check news in a bit next. To the downside, we have that gap that we can potentially fill, at least maybe fill a little more of it. To the short side, definitely looking to take out that wick from 2 weeks ago to the downside. Just keep in mind there is buying pressure in that area. As we can see, every time it comes down into this area where that gap was, we start to get bought up. So if we get here, my next target basically is going to be any of these fib levels. Could take it at any of those levels, at the 50, whatever you guys prefer, but I'll probably just take some off as it hits each level. Probably the 23 first, then the 50, 70, and so on and so forth, and just skip some. $10 plus on Palantir puts. Let's check it out. I had a short at Palantir near the highs, and I took it off for baby profit because I didn't want to babysit it anymore. Yeah, I had a short at like 192 ish. I got about $5 on it, and I'm like, all right, time to get out. And that thing got obliterated down to the downside. Oh well. Yeah, we've pretty much been bearish since, well, let's see, we had a little slight two up there since the second week of January, just straight continuations to the downside. Under 26. Oh yeah, basically that weekly trigger. So the idea for you would be, let's just use a $10 stop because our first target, give or take, is about $10. Let's just use this wick as an example. So your idea would essentially be, we're gonna, when we break this, we come back up, retest it, and then pretty much continue down. Yeah, something similar, even like the daily, right? We had that bearish TTO. Something similar can happen again. Let me get rid of that line. Yeah, maybe we get another H. Brings us down, retest that area, and then just keeps on getting obliterated to the downside. I'm going to keep this here so I can reference it in a week or two. Let's see, I think Microsoft was there as well from earlier. Interesting. Got a W on Microsoft Daily. I might actually take this. I haven't traded Microsoft in a while. Yeah, Palantir earnings, they definitely should. But it did have a crazy run up, right? It was like a 30, $40, and then it went to like $200. So I think the pullback is probably needed for like all the profit taking and stuff like that. Oh, nice. They'll definitely thank you in 20, 30 years. All right, let's see. So probably aim for like, let me get this little box out. So trim some. Stop loss can be in one of two places. If somebody wants a tighter stop loss, they can pretty much just have it under the bottom right leg. This is assuming that we don't continue to the downside and we just break up next week, right? However, we can go 2 and 2 down and then 3 up, which is still a valid setup for me that I would take for this trade. If somebody wants to give a little more room, they can use the bottom left leg as a stop loss, which will still give you, at the end of the day, more than a 2 risk reward, which is fantastic. I usually just prefer to have my stop loss under the right leg because if it breaks the right leg after triggering up, it's probably not going to work. This on the daily. We're definitely gonna need time on this. Let's see, because the first target area for me would be once it's that body in the center, which is about 14 bucks. And it moves about $13 a day. That'll be maybe 2-3 days, assuming we just get really bullish movement. And then at the max target, maybe about a week. Again, assuming we get really nice volatility. Somebody can take this to the downside as a 2-1-2 down. It's just pretty much completing the H. Whoops. Apparently I can't draw. Yeah, just completing that H. I just don't like to get on continuations for the H, just the initial reversal. I'll definitely keep this on the list. Oh, let's check news. All right. Yellow folder, orange folder on Tuesday in the morning. Same thing for Wednesday. FOMC minutes on Wednesday. It's not going to be much. Some people get confused with this for like the actual FOMC event. This is pretty much stuff we already know. It's just like the meeting minutes from it, like the notes from it. Thursday, jobless claims as always. Ooh, we got GDP data on Friday. That's definitely going to be a good mover. New home sales, PMI data. Friday would definitely be interesting. Rest of the week looks pretty chill. Just orange folder, yellow folder stuff. Just be mindful in case our good old friend Trump talks, because you know how that goes. But yeah, it looks like a pretty chill week for the most part, besides Friday. Any other tickers or anything else you guys want to go over before we wrap up? Ooh, we got earnings coming up for UWMC. It's in 2 weeks. Failed 2 down on the month. Cool. Pretty much all I got for you guys this week. We'll definitely review it next week and go from there. Any questions as always? Oh, you want to go over Lyft? Let's check this out. Are you bullish or bearish on it, or both? Definitely looking super bearish, at least looking at the weekly. That thing got obliterated last week. Let's see, the revenue was down. They beat earnings. Wonder if that's good. 5,400%. It's crazy. I gotta see what that means. Yeah, definitely looking pretty bearish for Lyft. With this big pump candle, you might have some buyers that are hanging out here. So if you are looking to go short, oh, you're bullish, a March call. Um, I don't see anything bullish about this chart. Sure, it's beat down to hell, but that doesn't mean it's not going to get beat down further. I would never necessarily buy calls just because something is like beat up to the downside, or buy puts because something is overextended to the upside. I still want some type of confirmation to take the trade. I'm not too sure how you trade, but I would still want some type of confirmation before I go long, right? Because we can just as easily just continue to the downside. Or what can happen is what happened to UPS. After UPS had the big drop, it just started chopping around for like 2-3 weeks. So if it doesn't pump up in your favor, it might not be viable. If you haven't gotten into it, then you might be good. But the only like long setup that I can see here would simply just be this reversal on the daily off this doji. So assuming we don't get a gap up on Tuesday, stop loss can be at the bottom of that too. But yeah, it's like 12 more cents. That's not much of a big deal. Let's see. We have the big drop. Probably get some fibs. See what else we can do here. First target, probably use the body instead of that wick. And then, of course, we have the other strat target up here. And then we have that gap. I guess the max target could be the gap fill, even though that's usually not going to happen immediately. Oh, sweet. Yeah, this is what the trade will look like for me. So when Tuesday comes around, if we break that inside bar setup, that's the only time I would really get calls. I wouldn't really go like heavy on it because again, we're still overall bearish. I'll go over like a little lesson with you in like the next minute or two that I gave to a student who's also new at trading. At least when you're starting out, right? Things to know. But yeah, you can. This is recorded, so you can pause the video here when you rewatch it. But you can pause and get these levels that I have. So once it breaks this high, I'll be looking to take some profit off at this first level at 13.99, and then these other fib levels. So right here, this blue one, then we have this wick. You can do the blue or the wick, either one is fine. And then these other fib levels here as additional targets as we go to fill the gap, because you don't want to have the gap fill as your max target, and then price gets, let's say, up here to like 15, and then it reverses all the way back down, right? Still want to take some profit, especially when you're counter trend trading, right? So the idea is, user, do you know about market structure? Like bullish trending markets, bearish trending markets, things like that? The overall idea is, if we're in a bearish trending market, you don't necessarily want to buy calls just because the market is heading lower, right? You still want to get some type of confirmation. So looking at lift, at least on the daily time frame, we're just going lower, right? We're not really making lower or higher lows or higher highs and things like that. So the market structure is still bearish. So generally, you want to be trading with the trend. as opposed to going against the trend. Same thing when the market is bullish, right? And we're heading higher, making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. You don't want to just buy puts or go short just because it's heading higher and you think it should be heading back down. Now, when you become better as a trader, I have some setups that are counter trend trades, right? Let's go back to the Microsoft trade as an example on the daily. So the idea with the trade is, if the bearish trend is to continue, there shouldn't be any reversals back to the upside with a market structure shift, right? So if we're heading lower, we're just breaking those lows, no support anywhere in sight, just keep on breaking lows, right? But the idea behind this setup right here is that if I'm heading down, right, and then I pull back up, which is normal in a downtrend, instead of us continuing down and breaking that low on the left, if we make a higher low and then we reverse back up, that's telling me that the buyers are strong now and they're overtaking the sellers. Because if the sellers were still in control, they shouldn't be the price shouldn't be reversing off a structure shift. It should just be doing what it's supposed to, right? Big drop down, a little pullback, and then a continued move down, and then it breaks this low on the left. But if we get the break, the pullback, and then the little push down with the higher low, and it reverses before it breaks that low, then the sellers are probably losing steam, right? And I'm pretty much going to be getting in at the beginning of the bullish move back to the upside, assuming, the buyers are actually, in fact, strong. It's not going to be guaranteed that a trade can win, but based on the story that we can come up with, or that we find that the chart is telling us, it can give us more confluence for the trade, as opposed to, oh, this thing is beat up, let me just buy calls. Or this thing is being pumped into oblivion, let me buy puts, right? You need more of a story on what the chart is telling you to make a decision to place a trade, in my opinion. Did that make sense? Cool. What I would recommend as well, if you are relatively new to trading, I do this to everybody that I work with and everybody that tells me they're new to trading. Definitely just paper trade until you build some consistency, because you don't want to really lose real money while you're still learning what's going on, right? If you go to school to be a surgeon, you're not going to operate on a human, your first weekend. You're going to go to at least a couple of years, probably more. I don't really know how surgeon stuff works, but I'm pretty sure you're going to go through a few years of training before they let you operate on a live human being. So same thing for trading. Don't try to mess yourself up preemptively. And now you have no money when you actually know what you're doing, right? Since you mentioned you are new, I'm not sure if you've been following my channel or not for a while, but I do have some material that you can check out. If you go to, where is this? Trainings and walkthroughs, there's a video that I made there for beginners. It's about 2-3 hours long, give or take. Pretty much goes over like basic candle patterns, understanding how to read charts, market structure, stuff like that. And then I have a lot other sections here that you guys can check out. So if you want to learn the strategy that I use, I have the strat playlist here. Some of my setups I have in the playbook section for those, or eventually when you get there, I have a section on trading psychology and pretty much like establishing your trading system and other information there that you can check out. So other than that, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Any questions, as always, just send me a message. If you know me on Discord, you can, leave a message on a video, or you can email me at ceruleanmindacademy@gmail.com, and I'll respond back to you as soon as I can, usually within the day or a few hours. Anyway, thank you guys for coming out. I will see you guys for the next one. Enjoy your Sunday. Excellent. Glad you did. If you catch me in another one of these lives, I usually have one every month. This specific thing is just for the watch list that I do here and there. But I'll usually have like an actual class that we go over whatever you guys want once a month. I don't think I did one last month. Hold on, let me check. When was the last one? Yeah, the last one was in December. So the next one's going to be this month. Probably next weekend, I'll make a live for it so everybody can come in and join. But yeah, definitely keep me updated on your progress. I always enjoy seeing how everybody progresses. It's no bother at all. I enjoy this stuff a lot. So with that, I will see you guys and enjoy your weekend. Take care.